Hey everybody, welcome back, and welcome back to the town of Canmore. We haven't shot here in a couple years. It's a beautiful mountain town, but it has changed a little bit, and it's not the only thing that's changing because look at this. It looks completely different. I have a brand new Tamron 12 to 20 millimeter f2.8 to test out, and the design is completely different. I'm Chris Niccolls, this is PetaPixel, and it looks like it's a new era for Tamron. And now for a jarring cut to my office to talk about today's sponsor for the show, KEH.com. You know, recently I had the privilege of traveling to Atlanta, Georgia, and I got to visit KEH's warehouse and shop front. And it was a really exciting part of the journey because, you know, like if you love photography, you just love all this old camera gear, and they have so much. It's like a kid in a candy store. And honestly, nowadays, a lot of new equipment is getting really expensive. Looking at used gear is a great way to get fantastic camera gear at a much better price. You just go to KEH.com, use their fantastic search engine. You can see all of the stuff they have for sale. Lenses, camera bodies, lighting gear, filters, everything you need across a whole bunch of different price ranges. And the beautiful thing about it is they tell you about the condition of the gear, you know what you're gonna get, and you have the peace of mind of both warranty and return policy. There's so much used gear out there that deserves a second life, and it's ready to take you through your photographic journey. Go to KEH.com, we love them. They are PetaPixel's official pre-owned camera gear partner. The trout, where would they be? Yeah? Yeah, what else? Yeah, good, wow. Who's this man? So Tamron have always had this sort of understated look to their lenses, and it has evolved over the years, but it's been pretty similar. And I've actually personally really liked it, very minimalist, but now they're going in a radically different direction. They've got this new design, and this lens looks unlike any of their others. Now, speaking of radical designs, this is a 12 to 20 millimeter f2.8 full frame lens, but ambitious optical formulas, that's totally common for Tamron. They always like to push the envelope. What's different though is the physical design of this lens and the look of it and the amount of controls on it. That's something that Tamron's definitely shifting from a minimalist approach to now something with lots of hands-on controls. So at the front of this here, you've got a fixed pedal shaped hood. You cannot really put filters on this, although there might be some sort of clip-on attachment in the future. But what I like about the design, it never changes. As you zoom the lens, you can see that front element moving, but it doesn't extend past the front of the lens. It never changes the overall size or shape of the lens design. Now, right behind that hood, you've got a very slim manual focus ring, and it's got a fairly loose feel. I usually want something that's got a bit more resistance, but I can customize this for linear response, non-linear response, customize the focus throw, all through the excellent Tamron utility app. That's pretty cool. Then I've got my zoom ring here, 12 to 20 millimeters, nice short throw on that. And then I've got a lot of controls to talk about, so let's get started on that next. Now you can get this lens in both Nikon Z mount or Sony E mount. I'm actually playing with it on the Z mount today. And on this, I've got a control ring. I can customize that to do different things. On the Sony E mount, it's gonna be an aperture ring, but either way, I can set this to have a declicked, smooth turning functionality or clicks, as you can hear right there. Right next to this too, I've got a control lock switch. This is really cool. If I flick this, it's basically gonna lock all the controls so I don't accidentally change anything. And this can be very useful if I'm doing something like astrophotography and I absolutely don't want to adjust anything. I've got a customizable button here. Using the Tamron utility, I can customize this to do a whole selection of functions. That's really cool. I even have the option to set that to 3 different customizable settings. So Tamron's really allowing you to have a lot of customization and control over your camera right through the lens. autofocus, manual focus, selector switch, another custom button position there for if I'm shooting vertical or something like that. I have a manual focus lock. I think that's pretty obvious what that does, but again, super useful for astrophotography. That is one of the functions that they really want to, push forward with this lens, and we're going to test that quite a bit. That's just nice. I can be walking around. If I accidentally bump the ring, it's not going to adjust the focus, and then I know that I'm still focused on those stars. We also have a nice little zoom lock control here, and I like that I can set this either at the 12mm mark or the 20mm mark. This is just to keep the zoom from creeping on you. Not that it really would on a 12 to 20, but I do like that even if I lock it, if I just give it a little bit of force, it'll unclick from there. So I don't have to, be like, oh, I kind of zoom, oh, it's locked, and then flick the switch. I can just break out of it at any point. So this is a big departure for Tamron, having a lot of these physical controls. And I'm not saying this is going to be going forward on all of their lenses. Keep in mind the 12-20 f2.8 is considered a professional series lens, but I think what Tamron's going to do going forward is just change the overall design and aesthetic of their lenses, and having more physical controls might be a part of that going forward in the future. And that's not all. I mean, the actual look of this lens has changed. So Tamron is changing everything about the logos, the text that they're using. The finish on this lens is kind of more of this matte finish on here with a bit of a textured finish to it. Even here right at the lens mount, Tamron normally has this broader, thicker, sort of silver colored ring that goes around, but now they've made it this thin, more understated ring. I mean, they're changing a lot of stuff here. The body though is still fully rugged and weather sealed in this particular lens. You got rubber seal along the lens and baffles and rubber seals all throughout the controls here. So it's made for rough shooting, and that's only 570 grams. So it's actually incredibly lightweight for a lens this size with this kind of aperture. Lastly, the USB-C port. Through this USB-C port, which is sealed by the way, I can do firmware updates, but I can also use the brand new Tamron Link device. Now we have a whole episode talking about a lot of the features on that, but they're constantly updating with more and more controls. You've got cool follow focus controls. This is where you can customize all of the buttons, connect to your mobile app to do it all through the phone. It's very cool and it's very simple. And again, as I mentioned, it's expanding all the time. All right, enough about the handling. Let's talk about some of the optical features on this lens. All right, so a bit of a practical example here. Shooting these flowers. Now, this lens is not a macro lens, but it certainly gets close. I'm like 2 inches away from the front of the element, but I'm not going to get like super close macro, but I do get that really dynamic look of having something really large up close and then having all that background in the distance. And of course, you can get really shallow depth of field when you do that too. So it can be a really fun little lens to play with up close. So you're probably seeing we're getting this mixed light of cloud and shade, but the sun's breaking out enough that I can do some flare tests here. Tamron always have great B-bar coatings on their lenses, and it's actually doing a really good job handling it. As you can see here, shooting wide open, even with bright light in there, we're not really getting a lot of veiled flare or washed out loss of contrast. When I stop the aperture down, very tiny amount of ghosting, you can barely see it. Like, it's doing a really good job. I want to test more of the sun stars, but so far it looks like they're fairly distinct. So Tamron's throwing their best technology at this lens. We've got a VXD voice coil linear motor in here, and it's driving the elements nice and quick. As you can see here, silent, fast, no issues, no hangups, no hunting. It's doing a really good job. Wide angle lens like this, you got lots of depth of field. You're typically not too worried about focus precision, but it's nice to see that they got their best motor in here. So in terms of video capability, this lens has a lot going for it. I mean, first off, just the awesome app in general, being able to pull focus with the app, but also being able to customize your manual focus we've talked about, the fact that it's so compact and light that you could throw it on a gimbal really easily, the fact that the autofocus is smooth and quick and quiet, like these are all pluses. And check out the breathing here. Basically no breathing. As I manual focus the lens from near to far, the field of view doesn't change at all. That's pretty impressive, but we do have one issue, and that is, of course, no ability to put filters on the front. So that means that if I want to use this on a gimbal, for example, I have to cut out gel filters for the back holder inside the lens mount. And that's kind of cumbersome. It's not ideal. If I was using this in a more cinematic sense with a full cage or rig and everything, then I could use a matte box, and this would be really quite an awesome cinema lens. Does it say no photography? Oh, no fishing. Not too bad. Guess I'll take pictures. Yes. The verticality of it. So far I've been really liking a lot of the characteristics of this lens, and it does make sense for what we're doing today, which is being in the mountains, doing landscapes and things like that, certainly architecture, but yeah, this has a 12-bladed aperture, and that's pretty interesting. You don't see that very often. And I did take a few sun stars. I touched on it. I've had an opportunity now with the sun peeking out to do some more shots, and I think this 12-bladed aperture is actually giving us really pretty sun stars. You can see when you got tiny points of light, it actually does give you a dramatic looking sun stars. So this seems to be becoming sort of a landscape lens extraordinaire, but what it doesn't do, that 12-bladed aperture doesn't seem to be giving us very nice bokeh. Now when we look at the shots here, you can see that they're pretty harsh looking specular highlights. Strong halo effect, there's a bit of onion ring mushiness going on, and when you just look at the autofocus areas in the background, they look pretty harsh. It's pretty distracting. So I know that a lens like this, we don't typically get shallow depth of field unless you're doing close-ups, but in most situations, I don't think it'll be a problem when you're stopped down, but do keep an eye on that. It's gonna be a little harsh looking in some cases. Right there, yeah, good, 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 and bam, bam. There you go.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. No problem, I hope you like the shot. Well, we're gonna end our day here at the famous spur line train bridge in Canmore, and we're gonna transition to another location because we still have to shoot Astro. All right, so Jordan and I are out here with our families enjoying a little bit of a break in the countryside, but we still have to get some work done. So I want to talk about sharpness next. I've got my files transferred over on this Glyph Atom EX80 SSD. Transfers up to 7,000 megabytes per second, very rugged. And I love that it's actually got a built-in tracker that works with Apple Find My app. So, you know, convenience is key. We're maximizing value, especially with memories expensive these days. You should definitely check out the Glyph. You can click the link in the description below. Let's take a look at the files here and talk about sharpness on this Tamron lens. And so as usual, I'm going to be testing at both the 12mm and 20mm end on this lens, and we had some interesting results. Shooting here at f2.8, we're getting good detail in the center, but when we stop down the lens to f5.6, I definitely notice that we get more. It just sharpens up a little bit more. In the corners at f2.8, you can see here it's a little bit soft and blurry. When we stop down the lens to f5.6, that improves slightly, but they're never super, super sharp, but they're pretty good. When we go to 20mm, looking at the center at f2.8, it's good, although I actually think it's sharper at 12mm wide open than at 20mm. However, stopping down lens to f5.6, we get good detail back, good contrast. It looks great. Specifically focusing in the corners at f2.8, not bad. I mean, a little bit of blur, but pretty good. And again, when we go to f5.6, those corners sharpen up quite nicely when focused there specifically, but this is where things are a little bit different. This lens at 12mm is pretty flat shooting, which means if the center's in focus, the corners aren't bad. But at the 20mm range, we get extreme field curvature happening here. If I'm focused in the center, the corners are way off. And when I specifically focus in the corners, like you can see here, well, then the center's way off. Even stop down at f5.6, I'm just not getting coverage across the whole frame. So that's interesting. If you're going to shoot this lens at 20mm, make sure you specifically focus where your subject is and don't expect the entire frame to still be in focus. Now, one of the main reasons we're out here in the countryside is because we get dark skies and we really wanted to test astrophotography, but that was last night. We had a clear sky last night. So I don't know, Jordan, why don't we do one of those, you know, back in time flashbacks? All right, everybody, so we've escaped the bright city lights of Calgary to come out here to the middle of Alberta where the mosquitoes are thick, but also where we get really nice dark skies. And that's because we want to do some astrophotography out here and really see what this lens can do, because Tamron is advertising this as a great astrophotography lens. We're going to look at the results in a bit, but I can already say what I really enjoy having is this manual focus lock, because as long as my weather's not changing, temperatures aren't changing too much, I can get locked in on the stars, focus precisely by punching in here on the Nikon Z8, and then just flick that switch. And then for the rest of the night, I don't have to worry about bumping anything or readjusting anything or refocusing every single time. If I'm in the dark and I accidentally reach out and grab the manual focus ring instead of, say, the zoom ring by mistake, no big deal, doesn't change anything. It's just a nice, quick convenience to have right there on the side of the lens. So of course, part of the reason we wanted to come out here is to get those nice dark skies, do some astrophotography, really test this lens, because Tamron absolutely wants to market that way. And it makes sense with those thoughtful design features that we talked about and just getting that nice wide angle field of view. And I think shooting at those more wider focal lengths, 12 to 15 millimeter, that's where most people are going to focus for their astrophotography work. I was able to then do longer exposures, not worry about stars blurring with motion blur and stuff like that. And looking at the results, coma was basically non-existent. A little bit of astigmatism, but it's incredibly minor, very well controlled. You're always going to get a bit of weirdness in the corners, but at 12 millimeters, this did a really good job. And so I could see why Tamron markets this as an astrophotography lens. I think you'd enjoy using it for those applications. So this was an interesting lens to both test and review, not only because it's optically a really good lens and has some really interesting features, but also because Tamron is trying to rebrand their image with this lens. I mean, even things like the packaging, you know, they're doing that same thing that a lot of other companies are doing, where you're going to a more cardboard, understated, more eco-conscious kind of look, changing a lot of the font and the look, even the naming. They're not doing the, you know, Tamron 3 DI-VXD, all this kind of stuff. Now it's just Tamron 1220 f2.8, right? Just trying to change things. The new look, the new design, the changes to the metal knurling on the rings, all of this. And I think we're going to see a lot of these design cues going forward on a lot of the other lenses that are going to be coming out in the future. When it comes to comparable lenses, I think this lens is going to carve out a good niche for itself, because like, look, Sony E-mount, you've got the excellent, absolutely excellent 12 to 24 millimeter f2.8. It is optically better than this lens overall, but it is heavy and bulky in comparison and twice the price. I mean, it's very expensive. If you look at their more affordable option, the 12 to 24 f4, a bit of an older lens, very similar in size and weight to this, but still more expensive, and you're giving up half the light. And again, when it comes to astrophotography, that's a big knock against a lens like that. And then when we look at comparable lenses in Nikon Z mount, well, we're giving up that 12 millimeter focal length. They make 14 to 30s and 14 to 24s. Great lenses, but again, it's a similar story. The 14 to 24 f2.8, awesome lens, but bulkier, heavier, and definitely more expensive. And when you look at comparable 14 to 30 millimeter, which is more of like the same size and price, well, you're giving up half the light. So this Tamron 12 to 20 millimeter f2.8, it's delivering good optical performance. Primarily, I like it more at that wider range, but that's where you're going to use a lens like this, and you're getting very cool design, lots of thoughtful control schemes. You're not, you know, chinsing out on anything here, and you're going to save some money. Thanks for joining us as always. We appreciate it. Do listen to the PetaPixel podcast. That's the exact same channel or all your favorite podcasting apps. And PetaPixel.com memberships. We keep adding perks. The latest one now, you get discounts with DxO software. They make a fantastic suite of stuff. But look at all the other perks you're getting too. I mean, it's insane value, and it really helps us with our special projects. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon with more on PetaPixel. All good?
Yep.
Okay.
Ow!
Could have been really bad.
Yeah, that magnet spin like that there.
Yeah.